What functions did it include altogether?
The mausoleum.
Mausoleum, one. A madrasa, not a mosque. No, a madrasa, a mausoleum, and a hospital. Exactly, 3 major portions. So, which ones do we see from here?
That's the mausoleum.
That's the mausoleum on the right-hand side. Different parts of the complex. And then behind me, that's the madrasa. There's something about the design of the facade of this that makes it very different from any earlier building in Cairo. What's new here in terms of the features that you see?
The arches are Gothic.
Well,
S.
they look a bit like Gothic arches, yes. You have a series of more pointed arches.
Yeah.
The shape of the earlier ones, you can see the shape of the earlier ones here on the mausoleum of Hassan al-Najmuddin Ayyub. They're more like what is called keel arches. They have a very sharp curve at the shoulder, and then they're fairly straight. But here there's a much more regular curving profile. So the shape of the arches is different. Anything else? Well, the niches are also doubly recessed, and there are more of them. And they go nearly the full height of the facade. So it's a way of making the facade more conspicuous than we had in any earlier examples. The other thing we should look at on the way in here is the door. Okay, we were talking about the door, which is one of the early examples of a bronze or brass, or they used to have bronze knockers with a lion's head on them. So, I mean, even on religious buildings, it was occasionally possible to find figural images in Cairo. Not that common, but this is one of the exceptions. So, we'll see other examples later. Okay, come over here, please. Have a look up and tell me what you see.
Oh, those are from the palace.
Yes. What kinds of decoration do you see in the ceiling? Arabesque? Yes, you have some vegetal designs on the lower parts of the beams, on the beams that go across the whole way from one side to the other. What do you have between the beams? What's inside the stars? That's the harder part. You have to look carefully for that. Yes, you have animals, such as a deer, for instance.
Oh, yeah, that's.
In that one.
Look up.
No, I see.
Okay, what kind of writing do you have, Zainab? Have a look.
Here. Yeah.
No. Zainab, this corner.
This one.
This one.
Oh, yeah, I can no longer look up.
You can't?
I can look up.
Oh, you've got a little bit of Kufik up there, yes, in that corner, for instance. So you also have some other elements in the other side remaining as well, which are similar to this one.
This is bottom of the ceiling. Like it's looks like it's some
like
wood and.
They took it
like
from the Fatimid Palace.
Yes, it's not in its original position.
Yeah.
But it is part of what was here before Qalawun built his complex here. And
So,
that, yeah?
This is the Mariston. What's on the other side? Those little room and with the courtyard.
That's the Madrasa for Nasser Muhammad. I hope.
Right there.
Right next to us, yeah.
That
right.
We can access through here.
There may just have been some service rooms in that area,
Oh.
but there's no major part of the complex. So there's another very interesting thing too here, which is the shape of this Iwan. This was one of the 4 Iwans that we have in the complex. You can see one of the side Iwans there. There's another one there. In the 19th century, they built this ophthalmology building in the center of the old courtyard. So it's not the way it was before. But this, well, not this arcade that they built in front. That's more recent with the flat roof. But this part here.
Okay.
It's very narrow.
It's very narrow at this point, and it has a kind of wider element at the front. So it's a T-plan.
Ah.
And this T-plan is something that you find in many earlier houses in Fustat. So it's a typical Fatimid domestic architecture plan. And it suggests that Qalawun didn't change this part, at least, of the complex very much. Now, Sidi Wan has some beautiful inlaid marble canals that led from the Shadir Wan. The Maristan too had some wonderful decoration, as you can see. Originally, there would have been a water spout that came from above this inclined area. It would have run over a carved marble panel. There's just a little bit of it left, but you can see it had this ribbing or design of arabesques in relief. And that would have helped create a trickling sound for the water, which might have had a calming effect. And then it flows into this basin and down the canal towards the centre of the courtyard. And similarly, there's another one in the other Sidi Wan, which also has fabulous inlay decoration, although of a different design than this one. Sometime when you get the opportunity, it's worth maybe going around by the entrance to the Maristan and having a look at the other one. But this is some of the finest inlay decoration from the Mamluk period that we have. And miraculously it survived. It used to be underwater for a long time. We'll see some other comparable work in the mihrab of the mausoleum in particular. But otherwise, this is as good as we'll see in any Mamluk building. Here's a good way to get an idea of the components of the original. Of the whole complex.
Yes, what I meant is this area.
Yeah, that area. I don't know from the Waqf of any specific function that had, so I'm assuming that it's just service rooms. Although that little basin, I wonder, is that actually there, or is it just a copy of the basin that we'll see that is in the madrasa?
No, it's actually there, yeah.
Ah, really?
So the hospital has been this whole area?
So the hospital is bordered by the 4 Iwans. This is one of the side Iwans.
And this one we are where?
That's the one that we went into over there.
And this?
And we were in this. The flat green part in the middle is the plan of the modern building.
Yeah.
So yes, all of this was part of the complex. So it's a huge area. And you'll notice that there's just a small street facade. Most of it extends a long way back from the street. And we'll talk about the street Qibla orientation when we go into the mausoleum. The decoration of the vestibule is very impressive, particularly in the stucco work that's been restored. Let's see, there's an inscription running around the window. The windows are round arches, which is unusual at the lower part. What's the inscription that's around the central window in the lower part?
It's a repeated word. Folk or something like that.
Something like that, yes. Al-Mulk, short for Al-Mulk Lillah. Sovereignty belongs to God, in other words. It's a common phrase in different parts of the Islamic world. And there was another inscription that ran on the wooden boards all the way around the courtyard, but that has disappeared. This one, yes, but I mean, this is a crude later restoration. It's not the original. So we don't know what the original was like here anymore. But also very impressive is the mashrabeya, the carved wooden screen. We have not only the very large diagonal elements, but that very delicate arabesque grill that you have just below the top of the screen. That's some of the finest medieval woodwork that we have in Cairo. So this is where the eunuchs camped out and controlled access to the interior of the mausoleum. Is there anybody here who hasn't been here before?
No.
You haven't? Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is give you 5 minutes to go in and wander around on your own. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in the world, I think, so you don't really want to have somebody blethering over your shoulder while you're looking at it for the first time. So the overall plan of the building is of what kind? Of this particular part? It's an octagonal central portion surrounded by
A triangle or square.
a square. Yeah. So where did we suggest that the plan might have come from? The Dome of the Rock is a possible origin for it. It's not exactly the same, but it does have an ambulatory surrounding an octagon, and the octagon itself is supported alternately on piers and columns. There's been a major restoration here recently. It's worth comparing, for instance, over there you see a little portion of the wood that is unpainted compared with the part that they have repainted. It shows you how much easier it is to read inscriptions when the background and the letters are painted in different colours. In this case, I think they've actually done a good job because they have kept the original patterns very well, as far as I can see, and the craftsmanship is good. The mihrab is worth remarking on because this is one which is much more decorated than any previous one, and which set the fashion for many decades to come in mihrab design. So we have, yes, rows of miniature columns, arcades with shells on top. We have the same kind of very fine semi-precious stone inlay that we had in the water channels in the Meristan. We have joggled voussoirs on the slightly horseshoe-shaped profile of the arch. And then running all around the tomb chamber is another inscription fairly low down. In this case it's Quranic. Let's just have a look at the window niches rectangle. So Zainab, did you get the difference?
Those are more projecting outside.
These are deeper.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Street alignment.
The street alignment, yes. So that the outer wall is in a straight line parallel with the street. But from the interior, what they want is to have everything parallel with the Qibla, which is at a different angle. So in order to accomplish that, it's where the street and the Qibla meet that they have to adjust the thickness of the wall appropriately. There are other parts of the decoration we should look at. If you look up, what do you see? What kind of, how would you describe this decoration straight above us?
Coffee.
Yes. What shape are they? Octagonals. More interesting decoration here. What's unusual about this?
Well,
It's small designs in the.
What kind of design is it actually? Yeah. If you stand back a bit, actually, you'll see the design a bit better. There's one version of it here, and there's another version of it over there as well.
Muhammad.
Yes, it's Muhammad. So we have Muhammad written 4 times in a square, 2 of them here and 3 of them one above the other in that case.
did the idea of like using sacred names like that kind of migrate from the east, or did they just start doing this?
Yes.
on
The first
their own?
time this occurs is in the Ghaznavid dynasty in near Kabul in Afghanistan, on one of the minarets there. It's what you call square Kufic, which may not be the best name for it, but it's letters in which all of the elements are at right angles to one another, and you don't have diacritical marks. Because of that, you usually restrict what you're writing in it to something that's going to be immediately obvious, like sacred names or well-known phrases, al-mutlala, something like that, alhamdulillah. but this is one of the most attractive designs that we have in this technique. Just another element to notice is it's now painted in gold above the marble dado and below the inscription. What sort of design do you have there?
Looks like a grape design, like vines of grapes.
It is.
Twirling.
It's like a vine scroll. Now there's another possibility of connecting this decoration to earlier monuments,
like
which
the Great Mosque of Damascus. With
exactly,
like the
yes.
little vineyard pictures.
well, not just the pictures actually, it also had a vine scroll, which was particularly famous. It was even commented on by medieval historians. And so we're going to see some mosaic in the madrasa. We have the vine scroll, we have the plan of the mausoleum here. So there are many elements in this which can be related to earlier Umayyad buildings in Syria. And Qalawun, of course, was not an Arab. He was one of the Mamluks who were Turkish originally. Perhaps by adopting some of the elements that the Umayyads used, he wanted to establish his legitimacy, to claim the same right to rule that the earlier major Islamic rulers had. Okay, there's more fabulous decoration, the same kind of stucco work here on the inside of the dome that we had in the vestibule leading from the outside. The original dome was probably of wood, and the comité 100 years ago or so replaced it in masonry. Which might have been a mistake, might be a little bit heavy for the foundations, but anyway, it's still surviving. Okay, we'll go across the courtyards directly from here to the madrasa. This also is most unusual for an Iwan plan. The Great Mosque of Damascus has a basilical plan, but it's oriented in a different direction. Big central nave, columns dividing it into three portions, smaller side aisles. And there's a kind of echo of that almost in the entrance to the central portion of the Iwan, which itself is divided in the same way into this wider central entrance and two narrower ones to either side. So that's rather unusual. In addition to the mosaic, this also had fabulous stucco decoration. Have a look at the roof and tell me what is unusual about the roof here.
It's flat. It's restored.
It's flat and it's restored. There's a possibility perhaps that some element of the roof might have been like the curve of the arch, although it probably did have a wooden roof, so we're not exactly sure what it was like, but what we see at the moment is a fairly modern restoration.
Is that one also restored?
And certainly the roof of that is restored, yes. That would have had some kind of decoration. The roofs also would have been painted too, but
What are the little...
there's a date?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the date?
1321.
So
I can't even...
I thought
1331.
1331. I thought this dated from 1284.
Okay.
So did they get the date wrong?
That was a
Calendar.
fail.
Good question. What calendar is it?
Well, it wouldn't...
What else could it be?
It could have been the date of the restoration,
Yes,
and they could have used the Hijra calendar.
exactly.
instead of
That's
the-
right. 1331 Hijra is about 100 years ago or so.
Okay.
So you'll find that a lot on buildings around where they have the Hijra date. So don't confuse that with the Miladi date. There's usually a difference.